And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Off aviation weather here with the first graphic, which is Sunday morning's flying weather. Band of IFR here, western Arctic coast all the way down through the western interior to the Alaska Peninsula. And near Unalaska Island there, some IFR across the Alaska Range, southern Kuskokwim Valley, and also up here, Kodiak Island into Prince William Sound. VFR interior to the north, marginal for the southeast coast for the afternoon. Call it VFR for the entire southeast coast there. Areas of marginal VFR though along the coast. IFR here socked into the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, and eastern Kenai Peninsula, as well as along the Alaska Range in areas. Otherwise, some pretty good VFR up to the north here, but back to the west, still looking at IFR along the west coast, the entire west coast, but Bristol Bay, mostly VFR, and most of the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, VFR as well. And then for the morning hours, next system here pushing another band of IFR out west here into the Aleutians, and IFR still holding here from Yukon Delta coast, Nunivak Island, right on up to the western Arctic coast. Better conditions to the east here, and another big area of IFR, Gulf of Alaska, right up to the North Gulf Coast. Yakutat westward, still socked in Prince William Sound, eastern Kenai Peninsula along the east side of Fognak and Kodiak Island, and some IFR lingering over the Alaska Peninsula. Otherwise, most of the southeast coast looking pretty good. And for the afternoon, VFR for the entire Panhandle again, with IFR still holding from about Cordova, Cape St. Elias area in across Prince William Sound, all of Kodiak Island, and along the central and western Alaska Range in a narrow band there, with some more widespread IFR from the Kuskokwim Valley right on up into the Kobuk, Selawik Valley areas, Kotzebue, right up to the northwest coast there across the western Brooks Range. And then for the western Aleutians, system out here with a band of IFR pushing into Adak and Atka. For passes tomorrow, Anatuvik and Adigan, call it VFR for both passes there in the Brooks Range. Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR in the forecast. Down to marginal for rainy and windy, VFR, back to marginal for Isabel, back to VFR for Mentasta, and for Tanita, back to marginal VFR. So will Portage be VFR tomorrow? No. IFR in the forecast for Portage Pass, and for Chilkoot and White, should be VFR, especially in the afternoon hours. For the freezing levels here at the surface, up across southern Alaska and the southern Bering Sea with 2,000 feet into Bristol Bay, across the Gulf and the Panhandle. And moving on to icing, best chance of seeing any significant icing will be in the shaded area here along all of the west coast, associated with the moisture down to the Alaska Peninsula. Eastward in over south central Alaska, Prince William Sound, and the Kenai Peninsula area. And moving on to the jet stream. Low pressure out here over the Bering Sea. South to north flow again continuing and advancing northward here right up across just about all of the western interior, taking a turn to the east and then southeast there into the Yukon. And for 9,000 feet, southerly winds up to 55 knots here right along the southwest coast there. Lighter as you head north, and south winds right into south central Alaska as well. And then northwest winds is clipping the eastern Arctic coast there, maybe up to 30 knots. Lighter winds for the Panhandle, high pressure out here to the west, but stronger winds to the west of that ridge. And at 3,000 feet, northerly winds, 45 knots here, St. Lawrence Island, down in toward the northeast Bering Sea, junction with this low, lighter there as they reach the eastern Aleutians. Another big increase in the winds here with that front out over the far western Aleutians. They're up to 55 knots. Otherwise, southerlies 40 knots across the western interior. Southeasterlies or east southeasterlies 35 knots for the Arctic coast there. And moving on to turbulence, with those winds along the Arctic coast, could be some light to isolated moderate turbulence there. And with southerly winds here over the western part of the state, look for considerable moderate turbulence for this area, right on down into Kamishak Bay, Barren Islands, maybe Kachemak Bay as well. And then the next system way out there to the west, bringing some moderate turbulence in toward Shimian at 2 islands.